Hi, hello, welcome to Getaway Day episode 40. Gautam Rao, Mason Lott here with you, talking some baseball, and nothing has happened since last time we spoke. We're still mired in the lockout. However, we wanted to do what I believe is central to the baseball fan experience, and that's just talking about some baseball players, talking about some teams. We're going to have some fun today. What do you say, Mason?
I am down. I have been incredibly bored. I've been refreshing Twitter nonstop since December 2nd, and there's been no updates.
Disappointed on every refresh.
Yeah, pretty much. I did see, I haven't read it yet, but I did see that there's a new article on The Athletic about the most recent happenings in the negotiations. So that's something I'm going to read tonight. Um, Evan Drellick posted it about, I think, maybe an hour ago. So, yeah, about an hour ago. So that'll be fun, fun read. But for tonight, I just want to talk about some ball players.
All right. And before we get started, if you enjoy our podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcasting app or YouTube to make sure you don't miss any future episodes. Let us know your thoughts in the comments or leave a review on Apple Podcasts or hit us up on Twitter and Facebook at Getaway Day Pod. The first team that we're going to talk about today is the Texas Rangers, who we did talk about 2 weeks ago when we talked about the major free agent frenzy. So, again, to recap their big moves that they made, they signed Corey Seager to a 10-year deal. They signed Marcus Semien to a 7-year deal, John Gray for 4 years, Cole Calhoun. These are all upgrades to their team significantly because of the state of the 2021 Rangers. Um, they were not a good team by basically any measure.
No, not at all. And I kind of wish I would have saved this for now to quiz you about it. But we were talking before the pod. The 2021 Texas Rangers had a total of 9 players worth 1 win above replacement each. Uh, 4 of those were on the roster the whole season. The other 5 either I think Charlie Culberson was there the whole season, but he was hurt. He only played 90 games. But then Joey Gallo was traded midseason. Then you had 2 pitchers eclipsing the 1 WAR, and both Kyle Gibson and Ian Kennedy that were both shipped off to Philadelphia for Spencer Howard in return. So they lost 3 of their 1 WAR guys. And 1 WAR is really not that great.
Wait, how many players did you say played the full amount of plate appearances that were at 1 WAR?
Uh, let's see. Adolis Garcia, Isaiah Connor Falefa, Nate Lowe, Nick Solak. 4.
Okay, so they basically had 4 players.
And
played,
Solak still missed 30 games.
yeah, but he's still got quite a few plate appearances. But the point being, they had a ton of these players just taking up playing time, and they're giving you less than 1 WAR or about 1 WAR. Um, that's way below just the average player you have. So 4 of their spots in the lineup were filled by these below average players, not to mention all these other players that were also not very good. So getting
So,
Seager and Simeon in that infield is going to be huge.
yeah, another little note just to kind of demonstrate just how bad they were. They had, I just counted it. I think it was 23 different players that played on the big league club at some point last year that had negative WAR. 9 that eclipsed 1, well over 20 that were negative, and quite a few of those, 1 hitter, but, well, I guess there were only 2 that were negative 1 WAR. Everyone else was kind of in between that negative 1 to 1 range. So it's a team of replacement level players, is what it was in 2021. Now we got 2022, 4 big contracts. You got Corey Seager coming into the mix, who last year in about a half season total, 95 games, 353 at bats, 3.7 WAR. Automatically would have been their 3rd best player by WAR. Then you get Marcus Semien, 652 at bats, 7.3 WAR. By far would have been the team MVP. So just those 2 guys alone are taking this team and adding what is that? That'd be s- six, adding 8 wins above replacement right there, basically. Um,
Yeah. So we've been pretty negative, I think, about the Rangers so far, and we know that Seager and Simeon are really great players. That's not in question. But
yeah,
what is there beyond those two guys that we can actually look at and say, this is something real, this is something pretty decent, or this could turn into something pretty decent
that's on the roster right now.
right now?
So they do have quite a few guys who either in the recent past were very good prospects, or even still are just incredibly young pitchers that could be pretty good. Like I said, they shipped off Kyle Gibson and Ian Kennedy to the Phillies and got back Spencer Howard, who was the Phillies' number one pitching prospect a couple years, like 2 years back.
Yep.
He did come over and he struggled. He was actually their pitcher that put up a -1 WAR for Texas last year, but he's still pretty young. He's
Yep.
24
25.
years old, 25 going into this year. He only pitched 21 innings last year for Texas, so it's not like he's really got that much. And he was coming out of the pen, and he's more of a starter anyway. So he'll be in the rotation this year. They have Dane Dunning, who was in above replacement level pitcher, 26 years old. They got him out of Chicago, I think, for Lance Lynn
Yep.
2 years back.
Last year.
Last year?
Yep.
All right. But yeah, so he put up a .7 WAR in 117 innings. Not seeing his ERA. Where's it at?
4.51 ERA in 117 and 2/3.
Yeah. And for a 26-year-old kid on arguably one of the worst teams in the league, there's probably some of that ERA could be run, or not run support, run defense issues. Um, so you could expect having a better middle infield here. That's going to help bring that down a little bit. You're going to continue to see him develop. So they do have some really good young pieces in their rotation. They also got Hans Kraus, or no, they gave up Hans Kraus.
He was part of that deal with Gibson and Kennedy, I believe, right?
Yes, so he went
Yeah, he
to
was.
Philly.
He went to Philly. That's right.
Okay, sorry. Uh, so they don't have Hans Kraus, which was kind of a hit to their system because he was their number one pitching prospect. But they did get Jack Leiter in their system. So Jack Leiter has not pitched. He did he pitch at the end of last year?
I don't think he pitched at all. He got drafted and then he had already pitched the long college season. I think they just sat him down.
Yeah, and he's incredibly young, so he's not going to be up in 2022. Um, I highly, highly doubt that he pulls a Steven Strasburg, pitches half a season in the minors, and then makes it to the majors. But Jack Leiter, long term, probably going to be really good for this club. So they do have some really good young pieces that can complement your Simeon and your Seager.
Yeah,
So,
another one is Josh Young. He's a third base prospect, and he is a bit closer to the major leagues. Um, Fangraphs estimates that he's going to be up in 2022. They definitely need a third baseman to add to the mix because outside of the middle infield, like we talked about, there's plenty of opportunities for people to jump in and grab spots and see what they can do. That a lot of these players are going to get big time playing time, and maybe they'll be cycling through players. But if you play well, you've got a chance to stick with this team.
yeah. Yeah. And one other guy that I kind of forgot about, they do have Cole Winn, who is their next big pitching prospect other than Jack Leiter, who is actually expected to be making the big leagues this year. I don't really know too much about Cole Winn other than he was the first round pick in 2018. He's his scout grades have him at a 55 overall, so he is a very good prospect. So we might be seeing him this year, but I probably wouldn't expect a ton out of him in his first season in the big leagues. But so that'll be nice. And then other than that, they have guys that kind of debuted last year but didn't really play much. And who was it? Anderson Tejada? Is Leody Taveras the other young one?
Yeah, yeah, he was. I think he's going to be one of their first options for the outfield because he was a kind of tooled up prospect. He's got speed, he's got power. So, I mean, he could hit, and that would be really big for them because he could be a true center fielder, I think.
Yeah. And then catcher, which is kind of another position that Texas has struggled with in the past. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, who last year was their starting shortstop, had been manning the catching position for I think 2 years before that, and he was a replacement level catcher. Like he wasn't awful by any means, but he's way more valuable at another position. Because I mean, heck, he put up 3.7 WAR last year at shortstop.
Gold Glover, man.
Yeah, and Gold Glove. And so they do have both Jonah Heim, who was a rookie last year, and Sam Huff, who I think debuted
I don't
last
think
year.
so.
He didn't debut,
Maybe.
so
I don't think so.
he'll likely debut this year. They're both really young catchers. Sam Huff has insane power, like absolutely bonkers power. I'm
Like
fairly
500-foot home runs.
yeah, it's nuts. They have him graded as a 60 game power, which I think is kind of low.
Yeah.
So
Seems like it. He seems like one of those urban legend kind of guys.
yeah, and he grades out as a prospect. At least he grades out as above average defensive catcher with a 50 grade. So he could be a really good long term option for them, solidifying that as well. So I really think that the Texas Rangers are probably not going to be good. I don't want to say that they're going to be good. I don't want anyone to misquote me on that. They're going to be interesting, and I think by the end of the season we could start to see that team gel and get onto a little bit of a run and look a little bit like this year's Detroit Tigers, where it's like you could see that they're starting to do some stuff. Not quite on the same level of the 21 Mariners, but we could start to see them trending in that direction, and I think it'll be really fun.
Yeah, so we've talked about their roster that they have right now. So what other moves should they be targeting as we get out of the lockout?
Well, that's a good question, because I mean, really, they have holes all over the field. The two spots that you could say right now with certainty are locked up are their middle infielders. Everywhere else, they have an opportunity to improve. Um, they have a lot of really young guys who are probably going to crack the outfield in Anderson Tejada. Adolis Garcia is still there. He kind of faltered down the stretch last year.
Big time.
So they could always use a veteran outfielder. But they have a lot of question marks in their pitching staff that I kind of think that's where their moves should be focused. So the
Yeah, I
Rangers,
think they should sign maybe a couple starters, even if they're not the top tier remaining guys, but just a couple other starters that can give you innings at the minimum.
yeah. So like, I've been looking, and right now I'm looking at the top 50 ranked free agents, and that's probably a little on the high end for what they really need. But down in the top 50, you have guys like Zach Greinke. Zach Greinke would be probably a pretty good get for this team as their young pitchers continue to develop. Greinke's 38. You're not going to sign him for a long time, but he can give you some innings there on a team that you're not necessarily going to win the division. Tyler Anderson would be another good option there. I think Yusei Kikuchi would be an interesting get if they could try and sign him, because I think Kikuchi is looking for kind of a spot to revitalize his career a little bit. So if he could go down to Texas and pitch well against his former team, that may be an interesting one too, because I don't know that he's really got a huge market.
I think it's decent. He had a pretty solid 2021, so I think some teams are going to be on him for sure, and he's got this uniqueness of being a hard throwing left-handed pitcher, so he's got
That's
that
true.
going for him.
So
But
my question to you is, we could sit here and say that they should sign a free agent like X, like Y, like Z as much as we want, but do they have any money left?
uh, well, since you asked, they definitely do. They only have the players that they signed this offseason, the four guys that we mentioned, and then Jose Leclerc. That's their entire list of guaranteed salaries for 2022. Um, so their payroll estimate right now is 127 million. we were looking up before the show what their typical payrolls were over the last decade or so, and they've been comfortably above 150 million in most years. So they should have some room to wiggle with, and I think they should just try to add some more depth, some more pitchers. Um, no reason to stop now. They've already spent like what 500 million in salaries this
Uh,
offseason.
553 million or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's bonkers money is what they've spent. But dude, I think they might be playing uh Let It Go for about the 10th time tonight. Back on the Christmas light display behind me. Every 30 minutes, like exactly every 30 minutes, Let It Go comes on. I can't hear it, and that song annoys me so much because it's the exact same lights all the time.
well,
Sorry, got a little distracted there. What were we talking about?
we're talking about all the money that Texas has spent, and maybe they will continue to spend.
Yeah, and they saved a lot of money last year because last year was, I think, their lowest payroll since at least before their World Series runs in 2010-11. So, because they were down at what 103 mil last year.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
So they definitely cut down last year, and that was probably a part of the reason because they knew that they were really not going to be competitive with the players that they had.
yeah. So, and they knew that it was going to be another year or two, which is why you're seeing them go out for guys like Seager and Simeon for on long deals. So they're not really expecting to compete in year one, maybe not even year two. Year three is kind of where they think they're going to be hitting their stride. So it's a rebuild, but it's like they're starting to see the end of the rebuild.
Right.
So they're setting up for that. So it's really nice to see. But yeah, I think that they'll probably go out, and I'm guessing that by the end of the free agent period, when the season starts, we're going to see him spend maybe another 20, 30 million on this year's payroll. I
Yeah,
wouldn't be
there's no
shocked.
reason not to, right?
Yeah. I mean, they have nobody in their bullpen, so they're going to need someone there. And then their rotation being as young as it is, they could probably stand to have another veteran or two there. They do have guys like Colby Allard who have been around for a while that have been injured off and on. I think Allard pitched in AAA exclusively one season, that are always an intriguing option, but haven't really made it in the big leagues. So it'll be interesting to see how they work it with their current talent and the free agent pool that's left. So
Okay, now let's go a little bit further west and talk about a team that's nothing like the Texas Rangers because they're already good, and that's the San Francisco Giants. So the Giants are returning quite a few of their players, but they are missing out on one very important player, Buster Posey, who retired. So that's going to have some ongoing kind of after effects, but I'm just going to lay out a kind of nightmare scenario, if you will, for the Giants 2022 season. So all these things, in my opinion, are actually plausible, and this is not very far fetched. So we see Alex Wood and Anthony Desclafani, who they both re-signed with the Giants. They don't pitch as well as they did last year. Then they can't find anyone to really replace the amazing production that they got from Kevin Gausman. Um, Joey Bart, the who will be the starting catcher now that Posey's retired, really struggles offensively and defensively. Late Night Lamont and Darren Ruff do not replicate their very entertaining and very good 2021 seasons. And then the old guys, Brandon Crawford, Evan Longoria, Brandon Belt, finally start to show their age this season. So all those things really could happen. And then you're talking about not a team vying for the division lead. Maybe you're talking about a third place team in a tough division.
yeah, which is exactly what we expected from them last year. And then everything went right for them. Less than all the things went right for the Padres. Maybe this year goes back to what we expected. But yeah, I'm right there with you. That would be the nightmare scenarios. They don't get anyone else between now and then. they've lost kind of their big bat there in Chris Bryant so far.
Yeah.
Buster Posey now being gone after a resurgent year where he just won the comeback player of the year, retiring at 34 to be with his family, which 100% understand and get. Kudos to him. He had a hell of a career, but it just puts a lot more question marks on this Giants roster that we kept talking about how they were kind of overperforming for what we thought they would be at their ages, with Crawford being 35, Brandon Belt being 3,100 or something. I don't know. Longoria is like 34, 35. So at some point, these guys are going to go back to their regression in age. So I don't know. It could go really well. It could go really poorly. But what do they need to go out and get in order to start to change those question marks into more of an ellipsis? Going for a ... not a question mark.
I think they need to get back in the hitter pool and try to get a guy like Chris Bryant. Maybe it is Chris Bryant because he seems like the perfect fit for this team because they value that positional flexibility. I mean, all teams do, but the Giants really make use of it with their platoons. Um, he can obviously play third base and then all across the outfield, and he would be like a top tier hitter to have in the lineup. And they're obviously missing Buster, so replacing him with a guy like Chris Bryant would be what I would do.
Well, even personality wise, he's a perfect fit. He kind of reminds me of a non-catcher version of Buster Posey, just in the way that he carries himself, his demeanor. He's not really cocky. He doesn't he can be, but he's not most of the time. He's just really, really freaking good. And he just goes out there and plays every day. And that's kind of how the San Francisco Giants have been historically. They're not really flashy. They're just typically pretty darn good. So even just from that standpoint, he's the perfect fit. Why would you want to go after anyone else? It's already worked out once. Make it almost like what the Cardinals did with Matt Holliday back in 2012, 2013. Whenever they traded for him from Oakland, he went to free agency, but they said, just come to us before you sign somewhere else because we will match it. We want you back. And then they went and got him back after he tested the free agent market, and it worked out from there. So I could see that same thing happening there. If the Giants can make it work, that would be ideal.
Yeah, I will point out that I can't remember the exact quotes that I read, but I think Farhan Zaidi said something that made me think that they really weren't pursuing him that hard, or he was going to be out of their price range or something like that. So I wouldn't be that surprised if he left.
Was Zaidi the one that said that they weren't going to spend $300 million on somebody, or was that the Tigers?
Oh, I don't know about that.
Someone said that, and I can't remember if it was in reference to Correa or Bryant.
That brings up the next question I have about the Giants' philosophy in general. So over the last few years, they've been great at finding these either cast-off guys or reviving the careers of their old guys. That's been their recipe, especially in 2021. Is that just what they do, and are they just going to continue to do that, or are they going to actually go get that big free agent because they haven't done it?
So I really hope that they go out and get a big free agent at some point, because otherwise it starts to look to me almost more like a Tampa Bay Rays, Oakland Athletics type situation where they're not really spending money on putting
This is the Giants we're talking about,
who historically spend money and legitimately cared about kind of the fan experience. And recently Zaidi is Zaidi.
Yeah.
For some reason I said it and it just sounded wrong. He's been operating in kind of that more small market team mindset, and it's been working really well. But at some point, you almost need to merge your small market mindset with your big market money and go out. And if there's the big money guy who is worth the big money, go get him. You have the money. the ownership will back you. It's a premier club in a premier market. The fans want to have a guy, especially now that Posey's gone. Like, who's their superstar now? The Giants is one of those teams that if they didn't have a superstar, it would be weird to me. So you almost have to do it as fan service, in my opinion. If it's the right guy.
Farhan cares about fan service though.
He doesn't, but for the right guy, he should. And I think KB's the right guy.
Okay, yeah, that's
That's
fair, yeah. And the one thing that I was a little bit surprised about was that they didn't pursue one of these top tier starting pitchers. They didn't try to re-sign Kevin Gausman. I mean, maybe they tried, but they didn't get it done. And then they didn't sign Robbie Ray, another guy that could have been their guy. But now that free agent starting pitcher market is quite a bit thinner. There's no real guy that you would want to give 5 years, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if the Carlos Rodon market doesn't really form in the way that some people think it will, because let's be real here. What?
He's very risky.
Yeah, he's very risky. So I could see them going in on a Rodon if his market doesn't form and he gets that big payday that fans think he's going to get. I could see him going in on a Rodon for a short contract, kind of medium risk, high reward kind of contract, if they could. But I don't really see him going for anyone that's like much higher profile than that. Not that there's really that many left higher profile than him on this free agent market. But then they're looking more at your Yusei Kikuchis, your I thought, didn't Alex Wood sign back? Why is he?
Yeah, I think he did.
Okay, they don't have it updated in the free agent tracker. That's so weird. But yeah, they'd be more in on your Kikuchis, maybe a Tyler Anderson, a guy who's not grinky old, but not 27, 28 years young either. So they'll go for kind of that early 30s guy who was decent in the past and see if they could get him to perform it similar to how Gausman did for them.
Yeah. So. And the guy we haven't even mentioned of their starting pitchers is Logan Webb, who was really awesome last year. And they're going to be expecting for him to take the next step or be this guy again. But he definitely didn't have to be the guy with Gausman there last year. And I guess that's it seems like a lot of pressure for a guy that'll be in his second full year in the majors.
Yeah. So they need to do something for sure. But I don't know what it's going to be. Let me see what other starting pitchers are available. Chris Archer is available.
That seems like an exact move that they would have made in the last few years, so I could see it happening, but I don't think that really moves the needle.
I could also see them going in on, I realize I said they probably wouldn't be in on a guy that was 27, 28 years young, but they might legitimately go out and try and revitalize Zach Davies. I can see that. I don't think he's what's the word? I don't think he's a lost cause. I think he could be rehabbed.
That was rude. That was a rude thing to say, but he was very disappointing last year for the Cubs, and it was actually surprising because he basically was a guy that always relied on his command. Then he started walking everyone, and then he could never strike anyone out in the first place. So when you can't strike anyone out and you walk everyone, you're not going to be a very successful pitcher.
So I realize that this goes exactly into what you were just saying with Davies, but what do you think of them trying to rehab Carlos Martinez's career?
At least Carlos Martinez has got velocity on his side. I guess it's not really what it used to be, but
he still throws mid-90s.
Yeah.
He's not throwing 98, 99, but
I don't know if the Giants will do it, but I could see a lower tier team trying to help him get his career back on track.
Yeah.
Zach Davies just seems like an Orioles pitcher. Let's be honest.
He really does. Speaking of Orioles pitcher, who I believe already pitched for the Giants, bring back the Dark Knight. He did pitch for the Giants
What?
for a short period of time, didn't he?
Did he?
I thought he did.
And of course, we're talking about Matt Harvey.
Oh no, I'm thinking the Angels. Different California team. My bad.
Yeah. His career is unrevivable, unfortunately.
Yeah. Also his public image unrevivable. But
Yeah, it happens. Anyways, anything else on the Giants?
I don't think so. I think that pretty well covers it. They need a big bat and they need starting pitching and they need to do KB and they need to probably get as good of a free agent starting pitcher that's left. So hope that
Clayton
Rodon
Kershaw
doesn't.
in a Giants jersey.
That would be interesting. I don't think I would like it because I don't
think
like
all
the
Dodgers
Giants.
fans would just be
Although
ill.
I don't like the Dodgers or the Giants. Like I have personal hatred for them. So, and Kershaw has personal hatred for him because he's been a Dodger his entire career so far. So maybe if he goes to the Giants, I'll be fine with it. I'll just continue to hate both of them.
Yeah.
I could get behind that. Kershaw to the
Okay.
Giants.
Yeah, that's I can't even imagine it. But
Well, people
who
would
knows?
riot.
Yeah.
It would be nuts. All right. How about we talk about a team that has not really dipped their foot in the free agent market?
Yeah, I assume you're talking about the Reds.
I was actually talking about the Rays.
Well, they've dipped into a free agent market a little bit.
Well, okay, so
More than the Reds.
More than the Reds. Okay, let's go with the Reds.
Okay, yeah. The Reds, we talked about this before, but basically the first move they made in this offseason was putting Wade Miley on waivers instead of paying his $1 million buyout or his $10 million option. So to add insult to injury, he signed with, or he got picked up by a team in the division that they're directly competing with in the Cubs. So if you're a Reds fan, you're like, what are we doing here? We can't even pay $10 million for a very serviceable starting pitcher.
Who would have slotted in is probably their number. I mean, I guess.
They have a good rotation, to be fair, but
Well, they've been talking about trying to trade Sonny Gray. So if they do that, then he bumps up to 3. They say they don't want to trade Molly or Castillo, but they've been listening to offers anyway.
yeah.
And with them offloading payroll, like he would have been the guy that you would pay $10 million for, and he would have been their number 2 probably by the time the season starts if they trade 2 of their 3 guys, like I kind of think that they might. So, but instead, he's now the Cubs ace.
I don't know about ace.
I guess number 2 behind Kyle Hendricks. How's that?
What about Stroman?
Oh shoot, forgot about
the
that.
The Cubs rotation is quite a bit better than it was last year.
Yeah, swapping Davies for Stroman. They're both they're both ground ball pitchers, to be fair, but Stroman is way better.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, getting back to those Red starting pitchers, so that's definitely a strength of their ball club. Having Castillo, Gray,
Tyler Mahle.
What's the other guy's name? Tyler Mahle. Yeah. Mahle, I believe it is.
Mahle. Whatever.
Yeah. I try to get the names right. It's important.
Well, but we know that even if I know the names, I can't get it right, and we'll get to that when we get to the Rays, because I'm gonna mess it up a lot.
Butcher some lows and lows, yeah.
Oh, goodness.
Anyways, those guys, those 3 guys make up what is probably top third of the league starting rotation. Just those 3 at the minimum. They've got a couple other guys in Vladimir Gutierrez. They've got some other, Hunter Green is coming soon. So they've got some reinforcements, even if they do end up trading Gray or Castillo. But
Nick Lodolo is probably going to be up this year too.
Yeah, him too. So saying all those names makes me think that yes, a trade for one of those pitchers is definitely going to be in play. I don't know who
Yeah.
it's going to be.
It's most likely, if they have their choice, it's going to be Sonny Gray. Just because he's on the bigger contract, he's a little bit older, and he's not the pitcher that he was with the A's. He's still better than he was with the Yankees, but you'd probably try and move on from him a little bit sooner than move Castillo, who is probably Castillo maybe a top 15 pitcher in the league when
Yeah,
he's right.
when he's right, yeah. And he's
So,
still got 2022 third year of arbitration, and then he's a free agent. Well, at the same time, Gray just has 10 million in 2022, and then he has a club option for 12.5 million. So he's very.
what's the
Um,
buyout on the club option? Does it say?
it's not listed here, but I assume it's quite um, reasonable. So it's not like they're paying these guys a lot either. Uh,
Watch him just put him on waivers next year.
yeah, and then the Cubs can sign him. Yeah, good with that. Anyways, the the hitting side is a little bit of a mess right now. They're losing Nicholas Castellanos. That's going to be a big blow for their outfield. They traded Tucker Barnhart. Tyler Stevenson's going to step in as the starter.
Which
Most of the other,
offensively, that one is an upgrade.
yeah, yeah.
So
Outside of those guys, they have the rookie of the year in Jonathan India. Jesse Winker had his breakout season last year. Joey Votto had a resurgent old guy season. I don't know if that's going to happen again. Eugenio Suarez had a bad season, and he really hasn't been right since he injured his shoulder before 2020. Um, and then they've got a couple other guys. One key problem that they really haven't resolved is shortstop. And that's not to take away from what
and
Kyle
center
Farmer
field.
did, because Kyle Farmer was actually pretty good for not having really played much shortstop in his career, stepping in at the major league level and doing the job pretty well, and he actually hit pretty well too. So that kind of worked out for him, but he's not really a long term solution at shortstop at all. They
Yeah,
haven't addressed that.
and something that the Reds have struggled with for a long time is having really anybody at the two premier defensive positions of center field and shortstop. So they don't have a true center fielder. Nick Senzel is their everyday center fielder. Nick Senzel, as a prospect, was a second baseman shortstop. He's been playing center since he debuted. He's not played short since he came up to the majors. So they moved Kyle Farmer, who had not played short hardly ever, there, left Senzel out of position in center for the fourth year in a row. And Senzel is quite frankly struggling with injuries, struggling with consistency at the plate, struggling with a whole bunch of things. And it kind of, those are the two positions that they really need to upgrade. And both of those guys are really good players. It could be and have been in the past, but it just seems like those are kind of the two spots that they really, 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 really need to take a hard look at this offseason and figure out what they can do versus what they should do. Especially still having like Mike Moustakas on the roster, taking up some payroll in a
I was going
bench
to get
spot.
to Mike Moustakas, yeah.
Because he
The
can't
Mike
play
Moustakas
anywhere but second
problem.
base right now, and you don't want him at second base either.
Yeah, so with Moustakas, that signing that was made before 2020 is really not looking great. It was like 64 million for 4 years. I could see Moustakas being a trade candidate because they just do not want to pay that money, and there's really no spot for him on the team.
Well, and they'll have to send a prospect with him, but I think pretty much every team is probably looking at the Reds farm system and going, yeah, we could probably take a Mike Moustakas if they give us one of those top 10
And
guys.
yeah, and I actually do like Moustakas as a bounce back candidate for this year. I don't think it's going to get much worse for him. I mean, it could, but he was really injured the last 2 seasons.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't think the Reds are. I don't know. I think it's pretty clear that the Reds are just trying to slash their payroll. They're not gonna have the resources to put the best team on the field. I don't see how they improve their team really.
So the one question that I have, who takes over defensively in right field now? Do they try and give Aquino another shot and put him out there?
Yeah,
Because
it's
like
all these.
Winker's their left fielder, Senzel's still going to be their center fielder, but who goes out to right?
Yeah, they've got Aquino, they've got Shogo Akiyama still on the team,
Ooh,
Tyler Naquin,
I forgot about
um,
Akiyama.
and then they have a young, well, not young, but he's kind of a prospect, TJ Friedel, who is listed as their center fielder on roster resource. So they've got a lot of outfielders. I don't think they're that great as a group, other than Winker, really.
Yeah, and defensively, Winker is really not that strong either.
No,
He's definitely a DH candidate when that comes to the majors.
for
At
sure.
which point the Reds are going to have to blow up their outfield and figure something out if their young guys like Austin Hendrick aren't up by that point in time, which I imagine the DH is within the next year or two. If it doesn't come this year with the CBA, it'll come next year. So, but yeah, so they'll have a lot of pondering of their outfield situation to do here in the next year. The one guy that we haven't mentioned by name, and I'm going to let you say his last name because I already don't remember what you said it is now. Jose
Barrero.
Barrero could slot in at their shortstop position next year,
Yeah.
which
So
he's a good young
he's a legit
prospect.
prospect. Yeah.
Yeah, so that would solidify the infield, I think. There, you'd still have Moose on the bench if you can't offload him in a trade, which then really leaves if Eugenio bounces back, your infield's set. And you're really just struggling with center field and your other corner outfield.
And and here's the thing that frustrates me the most about the Reds. The infield, if like you said, if those guys kind of bounce back a little bit, offensively this team's not too far away. They're just missing a big outfield bat that they're losing in Castellanos. This team's not that far away from being good.
Which
They're
is
just
exactly why they made all these moves going into 2020.
yeah,
Because
and that's what is
they
so
weren't
annoying
that far
because
away then.
they're not spending now when is the exact time they should be spending more money.
Yeah, I think they're looking at it from the standpoint of the Brewers are going to be the Brewers are expected to be the top of the division. I think people are expecting the Cardinals to at least be where they have been the last couple years, if not improved over last year. So it kind of still puts the Reds fighting for a wild card spot
But at the
at
same time,
best.
they nearly made the playoffs last year,
Yeah,
and
and but they also had their highest payroll in history, and that's not a team that likes to spend. So it's like if they can't guarantee themselves a playoff spot, they're almost going to try and offload all their high dollar contracts. So
it's not like the Brewers and the Cardinals are juggernaut teams, though. You
oh no,
should be able to
not
put
even a
a
little bit.
put a competitive team on the field and hope things break your way, and you should be able to compete.
Yeah, I mean, heck, if the Cubs make one or two smart moves here this offseason, there's a chance that they could get second in the division,
They should
maybe
be
even
right there.
first
Yeah,
if everything falls apart for the other teams. But
yeah,
like, there's no team other than the Pirates that's out of it still.
exactly. Yeah,
So I really
but
wish
the
I could.
Reds are, from everything that they've done so far, they're
They're just
showing that
mailing it in.
they're they're mailing it in. They're not really in it.
Yeah, I don't get it. And I live in the middle of Reds country. And Reds fans are so freaking passionate. It's insane. Like I know people say that about literally every franchise ever with the exception of Tampa. Um
Hey,
but
their fans are pretty passionate too. Actually, the few that they have.
yeah, but people don't say it about them. They say it about every other franchise, and like you see how Detroit fans are with all of their teams even when they suck. Like the Lions fans in football, absolutely nuts how into it they are, even though this year they're 1-11-1. Our buddy Kyle is just like he's always mad, but he's always passionate about it. And Reds fans are the exact same level, like intensity level of passionate about their franchise. And it just seems like the ownership there, it doesn't match the intensity. Whereas like you're seeing Detroit's now I'm switching back to baseball. You see the Detroit Tigers, same fans as the Lions, equally as passionate, and they're now starting to put money and stuff into their team, just signing Javi Baez and trying to do that. The Reds really need to follow that model. Granted, I think the Tigers owner is considerably more well off, but they're Major League Baseball owners. They're all well off.
Exactly.
Except right now,
Okay.
because with the lockout, they're all poor.
It's pretty funny to me that we are like agitated by the Reds, even though we root against the Reds all the time.
Well, I always want it to be good games.
Yeah.
I want
True.
them to lose all of them, but I want them to be competitive.
Yeah.
So it's boring if you win 21-0 every game.
I mean, that's what the Cardinals usually do against the Reds, anyways.
Win 21-0.
They've been doing
Just
that for like
absolutely
20
pummel 'em?
years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I like to see the Cubs and them go back and forth and split all the season series right down the middle.
Yeah. That'll probably still happen somehow.
Yeah. Because it's the best of both worlds for me, because the Cubs don't win every game and the Reds don't win every game. So it just kind of puts them in meh. So
Okay. Let's hit our last team here.
right.
That last team is the Tampa Bay Rays, who are kind of like the Giants, but they're the low budget Giants, and they're
Well,
returning.
I mean, right now they're kind of both the low budget Giants,
Yeah,
based on
the
what we were saying.
low budget.
There we go.
So they're coming back with most of their players from last year. They've got Brandon Lau, who was awesome last year. Wander Franco, locked up for a million years. Austin Meadows is back. Randy Rosarena, the Rookie of the Year. G-Man Choi, Yandy Diaz, Manuel Margot, Mike Zanino is back, and then Kevin Kiermaier, the long-term fixture in center field. So
The aged elder.
yes, he is an elder at this point, and he's not aging.
He's what, a full
particularly-
31.6 years old?
Yeah.
So old.
So this offense was really good last year, and there's really no reason that they shouldn't be good again this year. What do you think about the Rays offensively? Do they need to make any additions?
So I don't think so. And I think the Rays actually have already improved their. I realize we just said they have not added anybody to their starting lineup. Like there's no new guys coming in for their starting lineup. Yet they still improved their lineup by subtraction. They've traded a couple guys who are quite good. I'm not like not trashing these guys by any means, but they traded Joey Wendell to the Marlins. Jordan Luplow traded to the Diamondbacks. And so that opens up 2 bench spots essentially for them. And both of those guys are solid major league players. They're not like insanely they're not superstar players. They're not coming out putting up 4 or 5 WAR.
They're Rays players.
Yeah, they're a solid 1-2 WAR. Good defensively, decent with the bat. I think Joey Wendell to the Marlins is actually going to be really good for the Marlins. But that opens up spots on the bench and potentially some playing time as the Rays kind of mess with Brandon Lau. Brandon Lau?
Yep.
Yes, got it. Yeah, so if they take Wander, Brandon Lau, Vidal Brujan, Taylor Walls, and they start to kind of mix and match every day to get those guys playing time, Wander is obviously going to be their main guy at short. I mean, they just gave him what, a 13-year, $200 million contract. So
yep, a lot of money, a lot of years.
So he's going to get most of the playing time, and he's the best one out of all 4 of them. So he should. But you'll see Brujan, Lau, not Low, Lau, and potentially Walls kind of alternating at second. Maybe occasionally getting in at DH, and they'll mix and match there. So that's kind of how they've improved by subtraction. I wouldn't be shocked if they actually traded one of Taylor Walls or Vidal Brujan, most likely Taylor Walls, because they do have a lot of redundancy there with those guys. Brujan can play the outfield, Walls cannot. That helps a little bit, but positionally, they're kind of like triple booked.
Yeah.
So
And one other thing about Wander is that he only had 300 some plate appearances last year, and the Rays over the whole season were like a top 5 offense. So a full season of Wander, they could be even better.
there's a reason that this kid has been comped to Mike Trout for the entirety of his prospect days, and a reason why they gave him 200 million, and it's been thought of as an absolute steal. So he's incredibly good. But
It's funny that the Rays, they actually have a superstar now, and really none of their other players can be called a superstar at all or anywhere close. They're just
it's
all very productive, very good players.
it's their first superstar since Evan Longoria. Also, their first like $100 million contract since Evan Longoria. So it's going to be a nice change, them actually having like a face of the franchise. Because like I think last year, really the only guy you could maybe call the face of the franchise would be Tyler Glasnow, and he like hasn't really been there that long. It hasn't really been absolutely lights out. He was when he was healthy last year, but then he got hurt,
Yeah.
and he's missed a majority of the season last year, and is going to miss a majority of this season. But
Yeah. That's a good transition into their starting pitching. And they're going to be relying on mostly very young guys. So Shane Mcclanahan came up last year. He was really good. Um, he's got a very bright future ahead of him. They traded for Drew Rasmussen in that Willie Adames trade, and they made him a starter. And then he was good too, making playoff starts and everything. They signed Corey Kluber, who's 35.
I don't get
And
that.
I kind of get it, right? They need some innings. They need like a. They had Rich Hill last year. This is their Rich Hill for this year.
That's okay. That's true. I guess they have starters coming off the IL though from last year though. So that's kind of where I'm looking at it. Like I don't understand it, but we'll get to that in a minute. Sorry.
You're good. And then beyond that, they've got Ryan Yarbrough, who's been there for a few years now. And then Luis Patino, another guy that's pretty high upside that hasn't showed that much in the majors so far, but he was like the Padres' number 1 and number 2 pitching prospect before he got traded.
I think number 2 behind Mackenzie Gore.
Yeah.
And then he got traded over here. He's still only 22 years old.
Yeah, super young.
Yeah. But then,
And then
the point that I was getting to is so they've got those 5 guys slotted up right now in their rotation. But then they also have Brendan Mckay, who missed most of last year, I think.
Yeah, he missed the entire season, yeah.
Although he just got thoracic outlet syndrome surgery on the 23rd of November. So he might actually miss a considerable amount of...
It's not a great injury to have.
No, not really. So actually, maybe that's not as big of a deal as I thought. And then Yanni Chirinos fractured his elbow in September. He'll probably be back in time for next season. But that gives them another guy there. And then...
they're going to come up with 3 or 4 other random pitchers to the minor leagues that end up being very good.
The guy who's not in this list that also has cracked the majors already, Shane Baz.
Yes, exactly. And he's probably going to take on a starter's role as well.
And I would expect him to be... so they might go with the 6-man rotation, honestly. Like that just seems like a Rays thing, especially with this many young guys. The only guy who might not enjoy that, but would benefit from it is Corey Kluber.
Yeah.
Just from an injury standpoint, it would be good for him, but he's not going to like it. But yeah, with Shane Baz, the 5 that we've mentioned, if Chirinos comes back, like they have a lot of options. So be interesting to see how that goes.
And then do you want to read some names from the bullpen?
I would like to read exactly 2 names from the bullpen and then mention one prospect that I know nothing about. So okay, I'll go ahead and read through the whole bullpen because this is a really good bullpen, to be fair. So the Rays in the bullpen: Andrew Kittredge, Pete Fairbanks, Matt Whistler, Brooks Raley, Ryan Thompson, Josh Fleming, and then my favorite guys, JT Chargois and JP Fireeisen. And then they have prospect JJ Ghosts, who is
JJ
not going to be
Ghosts.
up this year. He's still at low A, but they have all the J's, all the
And
initials.
we have to mention prospect Josh Lowe, who will be coming soon.
How do you know it's not Lau?
I don't know, but
See?
could be right.
But yeah, but he will be up really soon. So that's another outfield option for him. Which
Yeah.
honestly, if they offload Taylor Walls, I would not be shocked if he was the guy that took the roster spot.
Yeah, he's going to play a role on this team. And I think of their position player group, the outfield is the spot that could use some potential upgrades. Because Austin Meadows, he's a good player, but he's not really the player that he was in 2019 when he seemed like he was going to be a star player.
Well, Austin Meadows is predominantly their DH now, isn't he?
Yeah, he's not the best in the outfield itself, so maybe he'll take more DH time because they had Nelson Cruz at the end of last year. I don't know if he's going to be back.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect him to get Nelson Cruz back. That doesn't feel like a very Rays move to me.
Yeah. And then we talked about this as well. Kevin Kiermaier could be a guy they try to trade just because of money concerns. Maybe they attach a prospect because he's really not the player that he was even a few years ago offensively. He's still really good defensively, but he's not a great hitter.
Well, and he's never been a great hitter.
He's never been a great hitter, but he's been kind of passable.
He's been passable for a center fielder. So
Yeah.
The thing with him is he's a career 98 WRC plus. He's pretty close to exactly average hitting. 2021 was actually one of his better hitting seasons. He was above 100 WRC plus. So he's still great defensively. And that's kind of the reason that he has a roster spot anyway. But with him making $8.9 million this year and then having a club option for 2023, it just really, really feels like the type of guy that the Rays are going to want to move on from, even if they have to give up one of their lower level prospects. Because I think there's a lot of teams that would gladly take Kevin Kiermaier for 8.9 if they got a prospect in the top 30. I don't think that it has to be a top 10 prospect by any means. So
yeah,
we'll see.
So you think Rays going to be in the playoffs again this year?
Probably. I could see it. Like I'm so confused by kind of the entire AL East right now because like the Blue Jays are trying. Like they are trying. They went out and got Kevin Gausman to replace Robbie Ray, but they haven't got a guy to take second base from Semien. And so they lost two of their highest WAR guys of the season. So it's like, I don't know if I trust them more than I did last year or less or what. So I'm torn there. The Yankees haven't done a thing yet. The Red Sox have... What?
But you know the Yankees and the Red Sox are going to be trying.
Oh, yeah, they're going to be trying. And I fully expect the Yankees to be in on either Correa or Seager or somebody to replace...
Story.
What?
Story.
What did I say?
Seager signed. Seager.
Thought I said Story. Did I not?
You said Seager.
Oh.
But it's fine, yeah.
Hey, they may trade for him. Who knows?
Maybe the other Seager. You never know.
Well, that's true. And then Baltimore is not.
They're the Pirates of that division, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think I would expect the Rays to be in the playoffs. I have the most confidence in the Rays than I do any other team in the East.
Yeah.
So, and Boston and New York could very easily be like 95 win teams with just like a move here or there, guys getting healthy, guys rebounding. Wouldn't be shocked
everyone was freaking out all season about the Yankees, and they still ended up winning 92 games, and it was not a particularly good season.
Yeah,
for them.
So, like, I don't have as much confidence in them as I do the Rays, but they could very easily win the division. So, and
Yeah.
I would not be surprised. So, oh well. Yeah, I think we got
Yeah.
through quite a few players and teams today.
Yeah. This is a good exercise. Gets you thinking about what's going on and what's to come for these teams. Maybe we'll do this again with some other teams.
Yeah, don't be expecting us to do Orioles and Pirates though. I think that's just going to be too much negativity. So,
Yeah, we try to bring the positivity here.
cool.
Okay, yeah. Well, that's going to wrap things up for this episode. We are going to be off next week, but we will be returning on December 29th. So look for us there and check us out on all your favorite podcast platforms. And, you know, we really appreciate all the support that you've given us. And for me, podcasting's a really nice way to end my Wednesdays after maybe a stressful day or a tough day at work or whatever. It's just really fun to talk baseball and hope to give you something that you enjoy listening to as well.
Yeah, same here. And it I can't word. I had a thought. It just completely faltered coming out of my face. No, the support from all you guys has been astounding. We're up to getting about 30 listens an episode, which is nuts. I can't believe that anyone wants to listen to me willingly. So the fact that you guys are enjoying our show means a lot to us. So just let us know kind of what you think about the show, and if there's anything that you want to hear us talk about, maybe we could work it into a future episode.
All right. Have a good one. We're out.